I wanted to share a quick theory because there's been so much information that's been shared, and we're getting a clearer idea of what we might see for season 7. And I don't know if what I'm going to say is controversial, but I'm okay with being wrong on this. I think the Novablade might be something that we only find at the end, and I see why someone might disagree. Like, it's featured on the poster, and based on season 6, we know the Orphan Queen had the Novablade, so it stands to reason that it's somewhere in Catullus. Like, it should theoretically be easy to find. But there's a lot going on. And honestly, at this point, I have trust issues, okay? I don't trust that because something is featured on a promotional poster means that it's going to be prominent in the season. Like, think of the Rune Cube and the Book of Aaravos. That was heavily featured in the promotional push for last season, but we only actually saw it for like literally a few seconds. So again, I think it's totally fair if you have a different take on this, and I might be wrong. I hope that I am, but my concerns are not coming from the void of my mind, okay? So that being said, I think that the Novablade will be found at the very end, and if I had to guess as to where exactly the Novablade is, I'm inclined to believe that it's gonna be in the Valley of the Graves. And I know that somebody is probably tired of me making Game of Thrones parallels, but I wouldn't make the comparison if it wasn't so in my face. The Valley of the Graves kind of reminds me of the Crypts of Winterfell. And generally speaking, I think that Catullus is heavily inspired by Winterfell. I could be reaching there because I don't know too much about architectural history and why some buildings look the way they do. It kind of seems like maybe this is some medieval design, and that's as much as I know. But because the Dragon Prince references a Game of Thrones so often, I can't unsee it. And also, while we're talking about Winterfell and the castle, when I first read the Italian tome, I couldn't help but think of Winterfell, right? Like, part of it reads, "And when we are equals, we can take our fate into our own hands and build our future. I see it before me in my dreams. A grand, glorious city, the pride of all humanity. A place where we are no longer forced to hide, frostbitten and frightened from the prejudices of elves and dragons. A place that can stand any assault and stand in the history of mankind for generations." So this tome is describing Catullus, right? Like, maybe it didn't entirely withstand Sol Rakeham's attack, but Catullus is primarily a fortress. Like, just look at the layout. It's on a small island with inner and outer walls, with a good amount of watchtowers. There's only one way to get into the castle, and that is through the bridge. Unless, of course, you're Rayla or a dragon. But generally speaking, it's pretty secure. And also, in the Tales of Sadia, we learn that Catullus is so old that it's relatively common for homeowners to discover a third or even a fourth basement buried beneath their stone foundation, and also that every fortress and library is built upon at least one older version of itself. So what this is telling me about the future is that Catullus is gonna survive. They're just gonna keep building on top of the current foundation. But y'all, tell me that doesn't sound like Winterfell. But back to the Valley of the Graves, it reminds me of the Crypts of Winterfell because it's the place that houses the tombs of the Starks, but only the Lords of Winterfell get statues, and that kind of reminds me of the Valley of the Graves. Now, we don't know too much about it, but in book 1, we do learn that royalty had been buried at the Valley of the Graves for generations, but not every king or queen earned a place. Enormous statues carved from rocks towered over the line of people, and I think that's all we know. Well, of course, we do hear Opeli say that it's a memorial for great humans, some of them who died at the hands of dragons, but the description from book 1 has a little bit more substance for me, and it reminds me of the crypts of Winterfell. And also, the thing about the statues at the crypts is that each lord has an iron longsword across their lap, and while there doesn't seem to be any particular tradition about how the kings and queens are depicted in the Valley of the Graves, the giant statues that we do see, specifically the ones at the entry of the canyon, are depicted with swords. So that is all to say, I think that if the Novablade is anywhere in Catullus, it would be in the Valley of the Graves. But I don't have any more real reasoning for it other than I really like the idea. And also, something that I found so peculiar is how humongous these statues are. Like, why? Why are they that big? I can't help but think that it's a nod to the starter shelves, but that's just an intuitive feeling. And also, more random thoughts. I really love the fact that Aaravos was restored in the funeral pyre, but then again, I also love the idea that the weapon that could kill him is there. And I am referring to the Novablade, but Sol Rakeham's carcass is also there, and they could just take one of his teeth. So yeah, honestly, I'm just chatting at this point. I just wanted to say that even though we do see the Novablade depicted in the posters, I'm worried about the fact that it's going to be discovered early on. I think this is going to be a late development. But that also kind of doesn't make sense because it seems like our protagonists are going to end up in Luxoria at the end. So yeah, I don't really know what to expect. I'm full of anxiety with a little bit of dread, but I'm also so excited. I don't know. I feel so many things. I want to see the season already, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not ready. I don't know. I feel feelings, okay? But no matter what, I do know that I don't want the series to end. Okay, but that's all for me. Definitely let me know all your thoughts in the Wicked depths below. Where is the Novablade exactly? And how are you feeling with the end fast approaching? Are you as unstable as me? Definitely let me know. If you enjoyed this video, hit the pretty like button, subscribe if you want to join this beautiful moon nexus, and hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever the stars align. But until then, Tenebras post Lux.